Ladies and gentlemen, Trump's interview with 60 Minutes was a masterclass. I'm glad the Trump team has wisened up to the mainstream media's tactics. They already knew they were going to deceptively edit down the interview, a 60-minute interview being 27 minutes at first, so the White House team went ahead and promoted the uncut version. They need to do that with every interview Trump is part of. Heck, have your own cameras record it. Anyways, Trump came prepared for that interview. He literally brought receipts with him. Trump was making a point that he has stopped a lot of wars, and Norah wasn't fully acknowledging it, so he had to show her.
And in the meantime, I've solved 8 wars. I knocked out 8 wars. I have 8 wars. I brought a little list for you if you'd like to see it. But I took 8 wars and stopped during an 8-month period, during 8 months before the 9th month. I stopped 8 wars. The only one I haven't been successful yet in, and that'll happen, is Russia-Ukraine, which I thought actually would be the easiest one because I have a very good relationship with President Putin. But we are respected again as a country, and that's the way I've been able to stop the wars. I also stopped them because of trade.
And on that note, you talk about Ukraine. In August, you rolled out the red carpet for Vladimir Putin in Alaska. But there's been...
Well, I roll out the red carpet for everybody.
Okay. But there's been no ceasefire.
There isn't, because I inherited a country where he thinks he's winning. That was a war that would have never happened if I was president.
So why won't Putin end this war?
But Nora, that was Joe Biden's war, not my war. I inherited that stupid war. That should not have been a war. That would have never happened if I were president. And by the way, for 4 years, it didn't happen. There was never even a doubt. Then the election was rigged and stolen, and all of a sudden you see them forming up at the line, and now I come back, and I'm going to get that one solved too. But I brought, just a little list of look at this, wars. How many did I solve? Cambodia, this is Cambodia, Thailand, Kosovo, Serbia, Congo, the Congo, and Rwanda. Pakistan and India, that was going to be a beauty. They shot down 7 planes. Israel and Iran, you've heard about that one? Egypt and Ethiopia, that's another beauty. Ethiopia built a big dam where there's no water going to the Nile. Armenia and Azerbaijan. And if you take a look, Israel and Hamas, which is a rough little situation, but it's going to be...
I do want to talk about, you have branded yourself the peace president.
Well, I think I did pretty good. I solved, those are 8 of the 9 wars I solved. You know how I solved them? I said, in many cases, in 60%, I said, if you don't stop fighting, I'm putting tariffs on both of your countries, and you're not going to be able to do business with the United States.
Why isn't that working with Putin?
It is working with Putin, I think. I did different with him.
Putin.
Countries, and you're not going to be able to do business with the United States.
Why isn't that working with Putin?
It is working with Putin, I think. I did different with him because we don't do very much business with Russia, for one thing. He's not like somebody that buys a lot from us because of foolishness.
That's actually very true. If Russia and the U.S. were bigger trading partners, we would have far more leverage over them in wars like this. But because we've been listening to people like Lindsey Graham for years, sanctions have been placed on Russia for decades. That effectively means we have no leverage when it comes to dealing with them now.
I'd like to be. I think he wants to come in and he wants to trade with us and he wants to make a lot of money for Russia, and I think that's great. That's what I like.
Can you get it done in a couple of months, do you think?
I think we're going to get it done, yeah. I think he really wants to do business with the U.S., but it did work with India, and it did work with Pakistan, and it did work with 60% of those countries. I can tell you, if it wasn't for tariffs and trade, I wouldn't have been able to make the deals. But I stopped, as an example, India does a lot of business with us. They were going to war. They were going to have a nuclear war with Pakistan. The Prime Minister of Pakistan stood up the other day, and he said, if Donald Trump didn't get involved, many millions of people would be dead right now. That was a bad war. It was ready to start. Shut down airplanes all over the place. That was going to be a bad war. And I told both of them, I said, if you guys don't work out a deal fast, you're not going to do any business with the United States. And they do a lot of business with the United States. And they were both great leaders, and they worked out a deal and they stopped the war. That would have been a bad war. It would have been a nuclear war.
The Supreme Court better not mess up tariffs. They allowed the shenanigans of the 2020 election to go unchecked. And I still hold somewhat of a grudge against them for that. But my gosh, if they rule incorrectly on tariffs and limit the president's power to unilaterally tariff products coming into the country, I'm going to be pissed. I say the tariffs have been Trump's most successful policy. He's used them to extract concessions that nothing else could have made happen. Tariffs are an economic tool. They are a government funding tool. They are a industry protectionism tool. They are a national security tool. Come on. Amy Coney Barrett makes me nervous, though, because she's always siding with the liberal chicks. This is one of my favorite parts of the interview where Norah gives President Trump credit for pushing Benjamin Netanyahu.
You pushed the Israeli prime minister to make this deal,
Yeah.
to get a ceasefire, to apologize to Qatar. Can you push Bibi Netanyahu to recognize a Palestinian state?
Yeah, he's fine. He's fine. Look, he's a wartime prime minister. I worked very well with him. Yeah, I mean, I had to push him a little bit one way or the other. I think I did a great job in pushing him. He's a very talented guy. He's a guy that has never been pushed before, actually. That's the kind of person you needed in Israel at the time. It was very important.
Those are pretty important revelations. Netanyahu has never been pushed by a U.S. president because he's been the one pushing our presidents to do all sorts of things for him. And you have to understand, it wasn't easy for Trump to deal with Israel because Netanyahu was adamant about fulfilling the strategic objectives Israel has had from the clean break memo. Those objectives have outlasted countless U.S. presidents. And it was pretty obvious that Trump was adamant that the war had to stop. I've made this point before, I'm going to make it again. I think Trump cared more about bringing those hostages back than Bibi. I think it's pretty obvious at this point that Netanyahu allowed October 7th to go on for as long as it did because it gave him perfect justification to fulfill those strategic objectives I was talking about. It's not a coincidence that October 7th happens. I remember when it was happening, all of us were like, yeah, they have to respond. And then after like 10,000 babies died, it started looking a little different for Israel in terms of PR in the United States. Then they expanded the war to southern Lebanon and Syria and Yemen, and then they went after Iran, and it's like, okay. But anyways, I'm impressed with President Trump's performance on that interview. I actually thought it was fair, to be honest. The lady that used to do it was so annoying. She never apologized for getting the Hunter Biden story completely wrong. I wouldn't say she got it wrong, I'd say she was just lying about it. Are you guys noticing what I'm noticing, that these reporters seem to be wanting to be a little bit more fair? Is it just because they sense that the country is moving away from the mainstream and watching YouTubers? The fact that there's a few of you watching me right now and not Fox News is bad for the mainstream media. They hate that because that means they no longer have a monopoly over your mind. That's because I do now. Blacker Carlson, Chocolate Superman, Brown Bond. I am so cringy sometimes. All right, thank you all very much for watching. God bless and goodbye.